Hello YouTube and welcome to another Elder Scrolls lore video. I hope all of you had a great Christmas despite all the stuff going on in the world right now, and that now you're in the mood for another Elder Scrolls lore video, because no matter your mood, I'm gonna do it. Today we're talking about Sotha Nall, the sister to the living god Sotha Sil. I discovered her as I was taking research notes on the Clockwork City for a future video, and I felt like a video about her could serve as a fun warm-up for the video on the Clockwork City, so without any further ado, let's talk about Sotha Sil's sister, Sotha Nall. The living god Sotha Sil was born somewhere in the early First Era, when the Dunmer or Dark Elves did not yet have their ashen skin and were still the gold-skinned Chimer. He was born in the town of Alt Sotha, a town belonging to the minor Chimery house of Sotha. House Sotha was small in almost every aspect, unimportant and not having been part of any great deeds whatsoever, only really ruling the town. Sotha Sil was born, as far as we know, as the youngest and only son of the ruling family of the town, and in extension, as the only and youngest son of House Sotha. We know that at this time he had a living mother, sister and a nanny that took care of him. There is no information on the names of the mother or the nanny, nor is there any information on the fate of his father. The only thing that we do have some information on is his sister, Sotha Nall. Sotha Nall was someone who we know that the child Sotha Sil very much looked up to and adored in many ways. As children they were apparently good friends and cared for each other, as his sister would often sing him lullabies and they would often do things together, like walk together in the flower gardens, skipping stones on the fish pond, catch torch bugs. As they got older, however, Sotha Sil remained very strict and very afraid of the consequences of his actions, while his sister became a bit rebellious to the family. From the dialogue that we get from her in Sotha Sil's memory bank, we learn that Sotha Sil's sister would sometimes invite him to do things against his mother and Neddy's wishes, saying things to Sotha Sil like this: "You're overthinking this. We sneak out, we sneak back in, no one will ever be the wiser. What are you afraid of? Nanny finding out? You're an adult now. No one will ever realize that we are missing. Besides, what's the worst mother can do? A scolding?" We don't know what thing they were going to do in this specific instance, but it does give some insight into their later conflicting personalities when an older sister became slightly rebellious to their family, while Sil tried to stick to the rules. Unfortunately, their siblingship would soon come to an end, as while Sotha Sil was still young, long before his glory days as a living god, on a rainy day, the town Alt Sotha was attacked by the forces of Mehrunes Dagon, who burned the entire town to the ground and killed all its inhabitants, completely wiping out House Sotha. Save for Sotha Sil, who was saved from the town's rubble by his later friend and fellow tribune, Vivek. We don't know why Mehrunes Dagon attacked the town. There's a lore book of an apostle of Sotha Sil trying to find out Sotha Sil's origins and his childhood, but he didn't really find anything on why Alt Sotha was destroyed by Dagon or why entire House Sotha was wiped out. He does speculate that Sotha Sil himself might know a bit more about the matter, but simply didn't mind to reveal it. Why that is only up for speculation. On the internet, some have speculated that the destruction of the town was linked to Sotha Sil and Sotha Nall sneaking out against their mother's wishes, and that their rebellious acts somehow caused the attack, because Sotha Sil has been remarkably silent on the entire matter ever since he was rescued by Vivek. But there's no real evidence for that, so do with that speculation as you wish. Some also believe that it might have been linked to Sotha Sil's future divinity, and that Mehrunes Dagon learned of that and tried to take him out before them. But there's no real evidence for either of the theories, so I personally don't really believe either. I think there might be some other solution, but both theories are viable, I just don't see any evidence. Now, the history of Sotha Nall, his sister, doesn't quite end there, as while she is deceased at this point, Sotha Sil still very much mourned her loss, far more than any other death of the town, including his mother and nanny. Years later, after basically becoming a living god after the Battle of Red Mountain, Azura's Curse and the creation of the Clockwork City itself, Sotha Sil was still mourning her loss, as Sotha Sil crafted a special memento to her, an alargic replication, or a projection of her, at his private little garden. Under the projection, which we can find in Elder Scrolls Online, there's a plaque saying the following: "Sotha Nall, a soul that deserved transcendence, may her song be heard in the hiss of every piston and the sigh of every spring." This indicates that even after becoming a living god, the infallible Sotha Sil still mourned his sister greatly and sought for ways to preserve her memory, like this projection. But that is not the only way that she was preserved in the Clockwork City, at least not speculatively. It's heavily hinted at in the game that the factotums, which are Sotha Sil's many robots that patrol the Clockwork City and basically maintain it, that they carry her voice, that the voice that we hear coming from them are hers. And perhaps even more of her is in these factotums, as in-game scholars have speculated that perhaps part of her soul is actually used in the creation of the personalities of these factotums. This is first hinted at in the lore book The Factotum's Secret Voice, where the apostle lector Tirdas Dran wishes to find out who the voice of the factotums is, after many outsiders have asked him, whose voice is that, after the outsiders first enter the Clockwork City. He finds that on his quest there is some serious pushback, as people don't really know and feel like it's blasphemous territory to try and find out the works behind Sotha Sil's own creations, as the factotums, tinkering with them is kind of taboo in the Clockwork City. But ultimately he finds it most likely that the voice belonged to Sotha Sil's sister, Sotha Nall, as he cared for her preservation the most, and in his memory bank one can find a memory of Sotha Sil working on early factotums, saying to himself the following: "Factotums, they will need a voice, something consistent but easily replicable, perhaps something comforting." In addition to that, the factotums sometimes produce strange sentences, likely composed out of the memories of the soul that drives them, saying things like burning beds, screaming, and collapsed roof, crushed child. Sentences which likely derive from the last memories of the soul in the factotums. Memories of Maroon's Dagon's attack and the fall of Alt Sotha. He also says that whenever these type of sentences come out of the factotums, they immediately go out to the disassembly line to get either destroyed or reset, which is kind of creepy in a way, but still a very interesting piece of lore, at least to me, as it heavily indicates that Sotha Sil used the soul, or at least part of the soul, of his sister to power these factotums in order to have some sort of memory of her. With that said, this is basically all there is to find on Sotha Nall, the sister of the living god. I hope that you really enjoyed this video on her sister, and that you consider returning next week for the Elder Scrolls lore video that's then, which may or may not be on the Clockwork City itself, depending on how much time that I have to work on it. Anyway, before I end this video, allow me to thank my top patrons, Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, and Mr. Christmas. These wonderful people, along with all the others on screen, keep this channel afloat in these difficult times, and for that I am very grateful. That said, I hope that all of you had a great Christmas, and I wish to see you all next week for the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye!